What's up, y'all? My name is David Isaac, and today we are going to be covering the most important aspects of the Tree of Life in Kabbalah and the four elements. And these are very important topics, in my opinion. I've been studying these on and off for a couple of years now, and they have had a profound impact on the way I view the world and live my life. So, we're going to jump right into it. I have a version of the Tree of Life right here. There is some variation as to how many nodes or sephira there are in the diagram. I like to stick with the traditional 10, and there are 22 paths connecting these 10 sephira. So what this is a map of the universe, but the universe might not be what you think it is. So at the top, this top node represents the source of everything. It represents the limitless light that everything springs from. And then this one at the bottom represents the physical realm that we inhabit. So our physical bodies, the planet that we live on, the solar system we're in, the galaxy we're in, etc., that's all represented by this bottom one here. And what happens in between the source and the physical world is what's really interesting, and this is just my perspective on it. I'm sure there are plenty of people out there who will disagree with my take on Kabbalah and the Tree of Life, and my opinions are heavily informed by the tarot, but more on that in a second. So, how do we get from the source, the limitless light that creates everything, to the physical realm that we inhabit? The first step in creation is that the source divides itself into two extremes. So this second node right over here is the divine masculine, and this third node over here is the divine feminine. So the source splits itself into the divine masculine and the divine feminine, and then they come together to create node number 6, which is the God mind. Now, the God mind is what we are all living within. We are not just living within a material universe, we are living within the God mind. And from there, the God mind creates the astral plane. The astral plane is a place of imagination, of dreams, of mathematical structures and frequencies that may or may not be realized in any material realm. But the astral plane, also known as the foundation, lays the foundation for all physical realms. Now, that being said, I do want to stress that we are only in one possible physical realm of many. I do think there are many different dimensions, you could say, that contain other physical realms. However, without the particular configuration of the universe that we have, perhaps it would be hard to categorize those things as physical or non-physical. That's a whole nother topic. But I do want to say I skipped over nodes 5, 8, 4, and 7 because those are not as important in this conception of how the universe works. And how creation goes from the divine masculine, divine feminine, to the God mind, to the astral plane, to the physical plane. And a big thing in Kabbalah is that once you reach the bottom of the tree, now you have the ability to ascend back up it and reunite with the source, and down, up, creation, physical realm, back up to creation, back down to physical realm. This is a cycle that is endlessly repeating throughout all of existence, all of time. Which actually, I will now explain what nodes 4 and 5 are. So to look at this from a slightly different perspective, this first node is the 0th dimension. The divine masculine is the first dimension. The divine feminine is the second dimension. And then the 4th node represents the 3rd dimension. So we're starting to see in the 3rd dimension, obviously 3-dimensional shapes can take place. And then the 5th node represents the 4th dimension, which is time, or another way of thinking about this is motion. So with this 5th node, with the 4th dimension, now 3-dimensional shapes can move and evolve and change throughout time. And then that lays the foundation, or I don't want to use the word foundation again, but that essentially creates the possibility of the God mind here, which the God mind can only truly exist with the structure of time so that it can understand, so that it can experience itself, so that it can witness change over time. Because if everything was static and nothing changed over time, well, then the mind wouldn't really be able to do anything, because a mind, by definition, is always, in my opinion, the definition of a mind is that it is always changing, it is always thinking, and you need time as a dimension in order for that to happen. All of that being said, let's look at this from a different perspective. So everything I just said, everything that I pointed out on the tree, now I want to point out with the 4 elements and how the elements fit into Kabbalah and how Kabbalah explains the elements is slightly counterintuitive in my opinion. So the way I understand it is this, that the 4 elements, fire, water, air, and earth, and the order of those 4 is very important, as you will soon see. So the divine masculine is fire, and represented by the wands in the tarot. The divine masculine is fire. The divine feminine is water, represented by cups in the tarot. Now, the divine masculine, the spirit of the universe, but also, I mean, technically everything is spirit, but the divine masculine spirit projects itself into the divine feminine, which is a sort of receptive creating force. And these two come together to create the God mind, like we talked about earlier, which is air. Air is the mind. Anytime you see air in a spiritual context, or you see air in astrology, all 3 air signs in astrology have to do with mind. And this is represented by the swords in tarot. And shout out to Joe Monteleone. Hope I'm pronouncing his name right. The way he explains the swords is the sword has to do with mind, which has to do with air, but the sword has to do with mind because the mind is constantly separating things. The mind is constantly dividing between one extreme over there, one extreme over there. I recognize the difference between left, right, up, down, backwards, forwards, etc. So the mind is what perceives all extremes. The mind is what is experiencing, if that makes sense. Okay, now, as we talked about before, mind, in order to, how do I say this? Okay, let's back up a second. So the divine masculine, fire, and the divine feminine, water, come together to create air, which is the God mind, but they also create its opposite, because everything has an opposite, correct? So the opposite of air is earth. The opposite of mind is the material world, represented by discs in the tarot. What do these four elements mean in practical terms? Well, let me tell you. So fire is spirit, purpose, passion, drive. Fire is what makes you feel alive. Fire is the force that animates the universe. Water is the infinitude of possibilities that there are. So if you've ever noticed how life is not something you can plan out, life just takes whatever course it wishes to take, that is an aspect of water. That is water energy within the universe. Also, the ability to evolve, or the process of evolution itself, of us as spiritual beings, going from childhood to adulthood, going from one stage of development to another, evolving spiritually, evolving mentally, physically. Any form of evolution, that is water energy expressing itself. And now, just like water is a liquid and you can't really grab onto it with your bare hands, evolution and this watery energy is sometimes hard to pinpoint in your everyday life. But remember, you need water in order to live, and spiritually, it is no different. Your spirit needs water in order to exist, and in order to experience this material plane, in order to experience anything at all. So it is there nonetheless, and you cannot live or die without it. Air is mind, as I said. In practical terms, this is pretty straightforward. This is whatever your mind is doing, whether it's good, bad, whether you feel like you have control over your mind or you don't. In practical terms, air is all about how you're perceiving things, and is the way you're perceiving things helping you or hurting you? How do you feel about that? Yeah, that's a deep topic, but if you're into meditation, or if you're into really studying any form of spirituality, most spiritualities talk about mastery of the mind in some sense. But I digress. Earth. This is the element of the physical realm, as I said earlier. It is also the element of your physical body. So in practical terms, this is talking about your physical health. This also talks about money. I will say that I think a lot of tarot readers out there, they think that all of the discs in the tarot deck have to do with money, and I don't think that's necessarily the case. But money is a big thing. Physical health is a big thing. Also, how you relate to your physical environment. So do you feel like you have control and autonomy over your physical environment, or do you feel like you're a prisoner to your surroundings? This might sound like kind of a tangent, but I think a good way of illustrating this is living in a crowded city versus living out in the middle of nowhere. Sure, living out in the middle of nowhere has its disadvantages. Living in a city has its perks, but in a city, when you're surrounded by so many other people all the time, you're less likely to feel like you have autonomy over your own physical space. And being in the middle of nowhere, you are far more likely to experience that autonomy. So that is just Earth in practical terms. Now, I think I have covered everything that I wanted to cover in this video. I will be talking about this more in future videos, hopefully. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, drop a comment below, click share, and let me know what you would like me to talk about in future videos. Thank you very much, and see you in the next one.